David, it's a great point. I definitely want to shift to crude because, wow, what a market it has been. I mean, just looking at the last week, let alone the last sort of few months here, let's get into your focus of what you're viewing from the crude markets here, especially as we've hit above 111.30 here so far today.
Yeah, a couple things fundamentally, if I may. You know, when oil exporters meet about the decisions you were talking about raising production volumes, and we don't think they're going to be able to get, they've said, like I think you just mentioned, they're not going to be able to get above 3.2 million barrels per day right now. They also have to consider the fact that there may be a global recession coming, and such a recession is certainly going to diminish demand for their products. So there's the looming possibility of price caps on Russian oil. There's a number of fundamental things in crude oil. But rather than just give a really short-term forecast for crude, if I may, I'd like to give your listeners from the yearly chart down to the weekly chart. Can I do that?
Absolutely.
Very briefly?
Yes.
Okay, so good. From the yearly perspective, the on-time year for a yearly top in crude oil for us is 2023. So we are saying that we're expecting a top in crude oil in 2023. It's possible that that could occur 1 year early in 2022. But right now, we believe that if crude closes above $106 this year, it's still in a very strong position. If it closes this year, 2022, below $99, it's in a much weaker position. Either way, once the top completes, we're looking for a multi-year sideways to lower decline in crude with a very, very bare minimum of $88 to $87 indicated as the initial downside target. So while we have been bullish on crude going years back with you, we're now saying we're inching in on a 2023 top in crude. Then, if I can, I'll say something about the quarterly perspective. We expect crude oil to decline back to the 105 to 103 level relatively early in the upcoming third quarter of this year. And that just begins in a few days. Then after that, we expect crude to advance back to 118 to 119 or higher in the fourth quarter of this year. So we're looking for a pullback first to 105 to 103, and then a move up to 118 to 119. There is a little bit of a wild card, if I may, which is that when we go back up to 118 to 119 in the fourth quarter of this year, there is a possibility as we head into 2023 that crude, under certain conditions, which we'll identify then, could run to 144 to 148. That's the wild card. Yeah, so we can't directly forecast that that's going to happen, but how they handle themselves as they come into 2023 is really going to help us make that call.
No, David, I mean, that's a very fascinating conversation to look at in those levels, especially as we look at volatility in a market, both short-term and long-term. Really appreciate you coming on this morning with just a great analysis across the board. And I think, again, I just want to highlight, David, what I thought was really important from my standpoint was the two different standpoints, the yearly, the quarterly, the weekly, in basically both S&Ps as well as in the crude oil. So great information as always. I appreciate you coming on this morning.
Yeah, if I can quickly mention, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but we teach how we create our market forecasts to traders and investors at the Mirage Hotel here in Las Vegas. And on our most recent seminar was just this last weekend. We had several of your listeners there, so we're very pleased to say that some of your listeners are learning more about market forecasting, and we look forward to being on your program next time.
Awesome, David. That's fantastic. Great to hear. And again, thanks again for coming in today. Everyone, that was David Williams, investor and forecaster at Page